But there's good news. God knew we needed help. And so he packed the scriptures full of ways that we can keep our emotions in their rightful place. So as many of you may know, I am entering my last stretch of my master's in clinical mental health counseling. So this has been what I am sleeping and eating and breathing right now, right? Emotions, emotional regulation, all that kind of good stuff, strategies, how we can help ourselves to regulate where we need to be so we can hear God's voice again. And one of the techniques that is often used within mental health, I'm going to teach to you today, but I'm not going to just teach it to you the way it's used in mental health. I am going to show you what I have loved discovering. Every new theory, every new concept, every new idea that I have learned is in the Bible. There may be different methods of implementing it, but they're all there. God knew what we were going to need. We just didn't realize what it was. So, this technique is called HALT, H-A-L-T. And these are questions that we can ask ourselves when we begin to feel overwhelmed by a certain emotion. Anyone, any emotion. It stands for hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, right? These can all impair our ability to respond to God's call rather than just react. So what I want to do is look at it in light of Scripture. So let's take that first one, hungry. Now, Snickers and Betty White made it clear to us that hangry is a real thing, right? Being hungry affects our mind, it affects our body, it affects our relationships. It can send us into a tizzy. And it's just a basic biological need that we need to be aware of. And that we need to be checking in with ourselves to make sure that our body is getting what it needs. But it's also more than that. Our sense of self can be hungry. When we are feeling like we are not loved or heard or respected, we get hungry. When we are feeling that no one appreciates us, we get hungry. And the problem with hungry is that we tend to make really bad decisions about how to fill that hunger. Really bad decisions. Again, God knew that. Proverbs 27:7. One who is full loathes honey, but to one who is hungry, everything is bittersweet. We'll take whatever we can get when we allow ourselves to stay hungry. We choose things that we might not normally choose. Number 2, angry. We're going to start right with the scripture here. Ephesians 4:26 and 27. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. Anger itself isn't the sin. It's what we do with it. It's whether we process it. Anger can drive us to fight injustice. It can drive us to want to reconcile and repair where there has been a rupture in a relationship. But unresolved anger, that can lead us to hurtful words, belittling others. It can lead us to reckless behaviors. And that root of bitterness that starts to invade all of our thoughts. Proverbs 29:11 says, fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end. Wisdom allows us to encounter anger with curiosity and use it to help repair. So when we feel that anger start to kick in, we need to halt, take a minute, and say, why am I so angry? It's most likely not about whatever just happened, if we're completely honest. So we need to look at what is under there. Lonely. Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely in families. He leads out the prisoners with singing. But the rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. Are we in community? God uses community in our lives. He uses it to fill a hunger and a need within us because we were designed to be in community with others. Moses had community as he led the Israelites, Joshua as he led them into the promised land. Nehemiah had community as he led the people to rebuild the wall around Jerusalem. Paul was ministered to by Ananias. Jesus leads us into the fullness of God's redemption, and yet we somehow think that we have to do it by ourselves. That asking for help makes us weak. That needing help makes us weak. And yet, time and again throughout Scripture, we see how God uses community in the lives of his people. He leads out the prisoners with singing. The word prisoners here is actually asehere. And what that literally translates to is bound in chains. And I love that because I feel like that's what happens. When our emotions take over, we are bound by them. They are in control. And yet he says he leads us out with singing. So my question to you is, how do you experience God? In what way? Is it through music? Is it through pictures, scripture, prayer, nature? Whatever it is, begin to recognize its value when your emotions have you bound. The rebellious live in a sun-scorched land. When we don't take the time we need to deal with our stuff, to process our emotions, we can feel like we are in a dry desert because it just sucks the life out of us. And everything feels hard. And it is. And I've been there. And my guess is many of you have too. But that's not God's best for us. And he doesn't want us to stay there. And finally, tired. Matthew 11:28-30, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus offers rest for the soul, reminding us that not everything relies on us. We aren't responsible to keep the world turning. We're just responsible for connecting with him and those he's put in our lives. And one of my favorites is Lamentations 3:22-23. He tells us, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Sometimes we just need to go to bed. We need to take a nap. We're tired. Early in our marriage, Kevin and I discovered very quickly that important or hard discussions were not particularly fruitful late at night. So we had learned that we needed to go to bed, go to sleep, and then we could approach it as a team the next morning. I will admit that my idea of late has changed over the years. It probably started around 11, and it is now somewhere around 7. So, yeah, that happens too. Yeah. We need to find ways to take a break, to let our spirits heal. We need to find ways to check in with our emotions that are indicators and that are telling us something. We have to build margins into our lives, and that is not something we do well here on the East Coast. We run nonstop, and yet we desperately need to halt and allow God to speak to us. When we take the time, we can then regulate our emotions, put them back in their proper place, and they don't consume us the same way. Now, there may be seasons that you feel like you are doing everything you can and you are still being ruled by emotion. That's legit. That's human. There are some of us who don't just have anxiety, but we have chronic anxiety. It is a level above just being anxious over a short-term project. We're human. But God has brought us into community, and He will provide what we need. Whether it is friendships or small groups or professional counseling or medication, God has placed people around us to help us. Feeling out of control, not being able to put our feelings in their proper place, hear me, it's not bad, it's not wrong, it's human. But we don't just leave it there. Because we know that God has called us to look more like Jesus for the sake of others.